Hello, welcome back for this secondary word I got. The Lord showed me this morning something that was in my face the whole daggone time, but I didn't see it. I was not paying attention. And in me not paying attention, I missed it. What is it? The Lord showed me the relationship between the couple I always call the God ordained couple in my show. Okay? In it, I've seen this, but I didn't understand it. So I'm going to go back to the point. The female's name is Buffy. Her name actually was short for Elizabeth. Who is Elizabeth in the Bible? The woman who carried the baby, John, who was John the Baptist in the Bible. Okay? Let me just clarify that. 2, her name means promise of God. The guy I always call the kingdom husband, his name was Angel. Angel is a what? Guardian. Okay? Angel, I never explained this part at all about this. He was cursed. His curse was to never enjoy pleasure from a woman. Let's go back in his story to explain why. He was initially named Liam. Liam O'Connor was his original name. And he was pretty much a drunkard. Some of his spouses was this. And he loved women. Some of his spouses was this. And he got lured in, go back to my word on Adam and Eve. Solomon was lured by the Queen of Sheba. There was a woman that lured him in that brought him to death. A way that seems right to a man, the end thereof is death. For 120 some odd years, he committed murders. Okay? He lewdly used people. He went through and did all this kind of stuff. But I later found out, and the Lord's bringing this to my remembrance now, is that he received his soul before anybody he was around knew it, because he acted like he still was one of them. Hear me with your spiritual ears. For 120 some odd years, he was out there acting like a prideful fool. Doing what he wanted, acting like he wanted, killing people, just murdering. Let me tell you something. And this is the way he used to murder. He would take a lie and twist it into the truth. He would, he'd take the truth and twist it into a lie. Doesn't that sound like Satan? Meaning he would take something beautiful and turn it into something evil. Some of your God ordained spouses, none of y'all watched the word on Pride. None of you did. None of you did. Go back and look at the word on Pride. I got on the blue sweater and my hair is in braids. And some of your God ordained spouses were operating in pride. Some of them were, I remember hearing Devon Franklin tell this story of he went through a season that he was walking like a minister through talking He was talking like he was a minister, but not walking the walk that he was talking. So he made the decision for 10 years to decide to walk that way. But he had a nightmare about all of the women and all of the things that were left bloodied by him during the time frame that he was not walking with God the way he should have. Some of you God ordained spouses in a previous season had just nastily killed the pride that was in them, the stiff-neckedness that was in them, just made them murderers, and they knew how to use words. Some of y'all husbands have a way with words unlike anything that you understand. And some of the most dangerous ones are the ones that are poets, singers, and so on and so forth, because of the fact that they know how to twist words in such a way. So you can imagine if they using it for evil, they can get anybody in their bed when they want to. They can have anybody do anything and get anything that they want. So in their season of murderous living, ludus living, going all the way to the dark side, mixing, divination, all of this stuff that they were operating in universal worship, operating in this, operating in that. They were doing all the things. But then when God came to get them back, some cases he ran because he didn't want to lead the pack. It reminds me of the episode that it exposed him that he had been still walking with the rest of the demons and the rest of the vampires because of the fact that he didn't want to leave them. He stayed with them for another 10, 15 years. I don't remember how long he hid the fact that he had his soul. Some of your God ordained spouses, they were being pulled by God, and God was telling them 3, 4, 5, 7 years. Some of them, when he came to get you, he started tapping them and they ran. They heard God tapping them. They sensed God tapping them. They knew God was tapping them. They ran. I want to stay over here with them. I want to stay over. This man stayed with the evil, demonic, bloodthirsty group of people that he was with for a few more years until he got caught. Some of you God ordained spouses got caught doing right. And it came to a point that God made it so that they had come to a point where they were confronted for being or having the soul or heart of God, which put them out of their grouping. Some of them are going through that now. They are in a level of isolation. This man in the show, he went through a level of another 100 years walking in a level of purgatory of his own, where he put himself on the streets. He was because he was a vampire, he needed to drink blood, so he was drinking from rats and all kinds of stuff, because he was like, I can't help nobody. I don't know what to do with my life. He was a mess because he's like, he now has a soul, but he don't know what to do with himself, because he's like, I have no purpose. Some of your God ordained spouses, God pulled them up out of what they were doing and has had them in a bit of a purgatory isolation, just like he's had you, because he's been dealing with them, because he does have a purpose for them. But then there was this guy that came to him after about 100 years, found him, and he said, there's somebody that needs your help. God sent a messenger to your spouse to tell your spouse, there's a young woman that needs your help. Your wife needs your help. And he went in his vehicle the next day and drove to where she was, and he saw her. Your husbands have been watching you. But they had to make a decision to go through the process to clean themselves up before they could even approach you. What he looked like when he was called, in comparison to what he looked like when he finally first met her, was completely different. He was out there on the street looking a mess, looking a hot mess. Homeless man. Hot mess. But when he got the notification, hey, she needs your help, he went through the process of learning what he needed to do because he was in hopes of seeking redemption for himself. Your husbands have redemption that are coming to them, and they know that they are meant to be a guided guardian angel to you, because you are what? The promise of God. So when he came into contact with her, at first he avoided trying to get in relationship. Some of your spouses, when they do come into contact with you, they may be a little standoffish to your relationship at first. But the love that God has placed in them is going to align them to come. They can't resist it. These two went for about 2.5 years trying to resist. Well, actually, it was 1.5 years. They tried to resist one another. She was pushing him away because she had issues, and then he was like, I can't be involved with you because I'm dealing with too much darkness. Some of your husbands think that they don't deserve you because of the amount of darkness is within them and the things that they've done. They don't feel like they're worthy to be with somebody that has God in them like you do. But you know as well as they do deep down in each other's hearts that God has aligned the two of you, and it's like a love story that, and they seem to have every Shakespearean line that you could think of. Every time these two ever talked, it was like hilarious but loving. It was beautiful. And it's like, he's like, you don't understand my darkness, and she's like, I understand your darkness, I'm here with you. You got dating spouses don't understand, or did not at one point understand, the level of understanding you have to where they are, what they've been dealing with, how they've had to deal with it, the things that have been going on around them. They think that you don't get it. It's like, God done already showed you. God has had you spiritually fighting that war already. You've been in it. You've been fighting. It's like, they do get it. We do get it. Matter of fact, we sometimes get it before they get it. But what they were not banking on, the enemies of your spouse, the generational curses, because a man came just before the consummation of these two relationships, and he came to a person that was spying. A lot of your spouses have had people around them that knew something was coming for them, and have been watching to make sure that it never came to pass. There was a woman that was placed in their friend group, Judas, that was positioned there specifically to make sure his curse never was removed. And somebody came to them. Remember, Jezebel had Baal, who was an authority over her. This guy comes to her to say, you got to make sure that this man don't lose his soul. A lot of your spouses have been dealing with a curse on the family bloodline. And I've seen a couple people touch on this, and the Lord even brought me to a level of revelation into this, that some of your spouses had a parent. Because I'm going to tell you this, and this is the way the Lord is showing it to me. Abraham went through all of this to break generational curses off of his family lineage and bloodline. Isaac had to go through but what happened to Isaac after Isaac's generation? Sometimes it's the generation that follows that breaks. Some of y'all, your God-ordained spouses were protected to a degree because of the fact they had a praying grandmama. But some of them also had a mama that was PREYing on them. Look at what Rebecca did to Jacob. Can nobody tell me? She's the one that had the boy steal his brother's birthright. She did it. And Nina I can't even say what she said. Go watch her video on the parents performing witchcraft so that they can be covered. The grandma may have covered the person, but then the mama did something that brought the curse onto the child. Anybody ever seen that movie Jump in the Room? And remember how messed up that mama was? The whole time she was doing everything. And then the son finally came out towards the end of the movie when the woman damn near ran away on the day of the wedding. And he said, this is why I don't never tell you nothing. Because every time I get this close to something that means something to me, you break it up. Some of your God-ordained spouses have had people that have been watching them. Mamas. Family members. I was listening to a minister talk, John A. Solomon. He wrote a book called Breaking Covenants and Curses. So in it, he did a beautiful word for Tiffany Montgomery's Covered by God. I think it was the last one. And it was talking about the tying down of the colt. When the colt was tied down, there were people watching that colt to make sure that nobody untied it. Some of your God-ordained spouses have had curses upon them and their family bloodlines for so long that there have been actual people watching spiritually to make sure none of this happened. Oh, no. You can't untie them. You can't take them out of the curse. The guy was sitting there in this particular show. He said, he can't lose. We took too much time to curse him. What in the world are you talking about? He's falling in love with somebody. Sound like something to you? He's falling in love. If he loses his... The curse was to make sure he did not experience true happiness. Let me rewind that so you can hear what I just said. The curse was to make sure that he did not receive true happiness. The curse was to make sure that he did not receive true happiness. The curse was to make sure he did not receive true happiness. Some of you God-ordained spouses, there have been people, witches, and all kinds of stuff going around them, making sure that they don't get to you because they know that as soon as they get to you, they're going to receive God's true blessing of true happiness. And these people have been they've been working overtime, double time, triple time to make sure this man don't get to you. They've been trying to catch him up in soul ties, divinations, coming into agreement with things that are not of God, all kinds of stuff to make sure they reinstate certain curses and covenants to make sure that he still can't come towards you. But God is like, when it's time for me to break that, I'm going to break it anyway. And they have been going through the breaking process. Because you see, what happened was he ended up going through a level of purgatory when he went to hell. God has put them into a level of hell on earth. This man went into hell for 3 months on natural time. It was 100 years in the spiritual realm. For some of your spouses, they've been going through months upon months of spiritual stripping because they had to be stripped of whatever it was that was not of God in order to come into alignment with what it was that is of God. And they had to get cleansed, purified, rebaptized for some of them to come into alignment with God's need and will. And for them, that season was hell. That season was hell. And what ended up, the consummation. I have been hearing this word like 3, 4, 5 times. And I was listening to Trust and Obedience Ministries, and she was talking about, in one of her words, what was the name of that? Oh, it's the last one. Kingdom Spouse is ready to pursue you, or something like that. And she was talking about the fact that if you've been hearing consummation, that means marriage is coming. What ended up happening is the woman who was the Judas in the group, she was trying to avoid him and her getting close. There have been women, counterfeits, and people positioned in your God-ordained spouse's life specifically to target him in order to prevent him from getting to you, because they knew as soon as he reached you, you would be the one thing that would be able to do what? Give him true happiness. Give him true happiness. Something happened in the episode that was pretty much their episode. Now, this is something that I've been seeing and I didn't want to touch on, and I'm trying to get clarity from the Lord. At this point, I trust in the fact that God knows what he is doing. And with God knowing what he is doing, there is a way that he wants you to attain your inheritance through marriage. Right now, there is a split in the communities. Some are saying you should go to the courthouse, elope, you can have your wedding later. There are others that are saying that you should just sit with the Lord between you and your God-ordained spouse and do a commitment between the two of you, because contractually, if you look at what the deed of a contractual agreement, it is a verbal contract that is committed between two people. But I'm gonna tell you what I the way I feel about it. I would go for the eloping before I would ever trust to do just between me and the person. Now, if me and the person, after we elope, sit upon the floor with the Lord and submit ourselves to God and our bodies to God, great. But I'm thinking long term, 10, 20, 50, 30, 50 years from now, something happened to that person. When it comes time for all of your documentation, now some people will argue and say this and say that. Well, they can get all the documents in order and have trusts and wills and all this kind of stuff. You went through all of these other legal documents when you could have just had the marriage license, because you don't want to get a marriage license. So that's between you and God, how you go about that process. Because to me, if we've been sitting up here with all of this, because you know the people that used to go through the process of what you call it, common law marriages, where they never really got married. But I've been listening to Tiffany Montgomery, and Tiffany Montgomery has been talking about the fact that some of y'all parents was never married. It's like, that wasn't marriage. So that means, what is it to be married? Some people are now afraid of documentation. but in the legality of the matter of protecting your kids and your inheritance. Nehemiah. The thing that protected him for the wall to be built was a law that was in the books. Sometimes the documentation can be a help to you. Having the right paperwork can be a help to you. Having all your T's crossed and your I's dotted can be a help to you. I'm going to leave that there. We ain't getting into that conversation. But with that being said, him and her exchanged rings. When you and your spouse exchange your rings, they did not have an official wedding. We did not actually see a wedding between the two of these people till a year later. And it was only in a dream. They exchanged wedding bands. He already was wearing one. He gave the other one to her. It was a symbol of love through his family crest. It was a family heirloom. He was Irish, so they had the claddagh ring, and the claddagh ring had a specific meaning of love, loyalty, and I forgot what the third part was. Love, loyalty, and something. I can't remember the third part. But he gave that to her as a band. And she never took it off. The only time she took it off was the next year after he had passed. And she called herself trying to move on. And that's when he returned, actually. She put on the ring. Some of these people have been desperately desiring to make sure that you don't get the ring. You don't get your ring. That's what they've been desperately desiring. But see, when he gave her that ring, wasn't nobody around. When he gave her that ring, didn't nobody witness that. When he gave her the commitment, wasn't nobody around. Some of you are going to elope. You're going to go away where ain't nobody going to see you. And you're going to what? Get married and consummate your marriage. I said this before. Go back and look at my word. Here comes the judge. You are a promise of God to this man that is going to break the curse. She sleeping with him broke the curse. You're going to break the curse. He's got generational curses on his bloodline that you, upon your wedding, upon your marriage, will break curses in his family lineage. Some of you already been doing it if you've been participating in the process of doing the work while you waiting. And I thank you, Apostle Youngblood. The other day I was literally watching one of his videos and he was talking about a woman that is on one of his broadcasts that was talking about prayers for marriage. It's like some of y'all been praying for spouses or desiring to have spouses, but it's the prayer that you pray for the spouse that will turn that man into what's necessary, that by the time he get to you, he will be the man. This is what he said, will be the man that you were desiring and praying about. Pay attention. Yeah, man. You've been praying about this. You've been praying for this. Doesn't mean that you're not going to go through your struggles and your ups and downs. Oh, they went through it. When they got back together after the turmoil that he caused, because he started acting a fool. I talked about that in the Pride episode. People didn't want them together. Because you see, people see your God ordained spouse in a certain eye. And them seeing him in a certain way, that when he's coming to you or with you, he doesn't act the way that they're used to him being. And then if he changes or has changed, people aren't going to accept him for that, and you still loving him for that. Because she always loved him. When he was bad, when he was good, she still loved him. When he got ugly, she still loved him. Even when he was gone, she still loved him. Because he felt like he couldn't stay being with her no more. So he separated himself from her because he felt he had done too much. But she still loved him. She still loved him. A lot of y'all have been loving on your spouses from a distance and it didn't matter. So they got into divination, okay. So they got into drugs, okay. Alcohol, okay. So they were doing Leviticus life and sex and all this kind of stuff. Okay, some of them were into witchcraft. Okay. I'm still loving on them because God told me that was the person I'm supposed to love on. So I'm going to keep loving on them until they get right. And I'm going to pray for them to get that other stuff out of them. I heard Trust and Obedience say it this way. You're going to have to love the hell out of them. Okay. That's what that character did in that show. She loved the hell out of him. To the point that by the end of the show, he finally admitted he wanted her back because he nearly lost her. There was a season that at the end of it, she passed on. And it was only due to friends of hers that brought her back because they didn't want to let her go. Your God ordained spouse loves you, but some of them are scared to love you because of what it will do to them. When he lost his soul, because he did lose his soul for a season or a period of time for her. And all that was a reflection of pride. Some of these men got pride. And if they know that if they allow pride to come in, it's going to mess up y'all relationship.